All right, guys. It's been 2 weeks since I've worked on the Veloster. I've been working on trying to get my house ready to put it up for sale. Don't know if that's going to happen or not. My tenant is trying to work out a deal that would help me effectively not have to sell the house, but I don't know if that's going to pan out yet or not. So it's still kind of up in the air, but told him I'd give him 2 weeks to figure it out. So I'm gonna work on the Veloster a little bit more. I've got a majority of the house cleaned up. I still have some stuff out here that I need to pick up. I got to take all that metal over there, or right there, up to the scrap yard. And then this is all the parts left over from the Genesis when I tore it apart. But I'm gonna start working on the Veloster again. I think what I'm gonna do is move the engine and transmission, because I've got it underneath the front of the car right now. So I'm gonna move the engine and transmission out of the way. I'm gonna put the heat shields back onto the floor that I removed, and then I'm gonna start moving the brake booster mount over to where it belongs, and then I'm gonna start trying to fit the engine in the subframe and see where we get. So hopefully I can get a lot done. All right, guys, I've been working on this for a little while, trying to figure out how the steering wheel is going to sit in here, trying to figure out where my brackets are going to sit, make sure the steering shaft's not going to interfere with the brake pedal. So I went ahead and cut the area out for the brake pedal. And let's see if I can get this to fit. It was a pain in the ass to get it in there earlier. Hold on. All right, so I had to slide it in from the firewall side, but when I get the pedal sitting where I want it, looks like the steering shaft's going to clear. Looks like my pedals are going to sit essentially where I want them to, where they're pretty evenly spaced. I might need to play with it a little bit to get the height right, or adjust the clutch pedal, one or the other. But it looks like everything's going to work out good. Now I just got to make sure that when I go to do the front subframe, that the steering shaft angle is at the right angle, and then it's going to line up with the subframe where it needs to, because it's got to line up right there. All right, so I've been working on this for a while. I've got the brake pedal essentially where I want it to be. It's a little bit high, but I had to keep it high because of where the steering shaft is going to come through. So what I may wind up doing is making a new arm for the pedal, and just make it drop down a little bit more, because if it was dropped down, it'd be in the perfect height with the clutch pedal and the gas pedal. So it just needs to be a little bit longer. This is the Genesis pedal. The Veloster pedal does sit down about an inch further, so, but it's angled the other way, and I have to have it angled this way to go around the steering shaft. So but I got my wiring harness hole in there, got the brake mount welded in there, and so now I'm going to start fitting the subframe, getting the subframe where it needs to be. Then I'll figure out where the steering shaft is going to sit based off of where the subframe is going to sit. Then I can weld the steering shaft or the steering mounting bracket onto the dashboard bar. Then I can finish up welding up the dash and getting it completely finished, and doing the rest of the fiberglass on the dash and getting it completely finished, and I can continue working on getting the chassis mounted and everything. So I think what I'm going to do is, now that I'm at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just work on getting the chassis or getting the front subframe completely mounted, and getting the engine sitting into the chassis, so that if I have to roll this thing and move it when I sell my house, then I'll be able to move it. Now this will show you how close I am to the side, and the clutch is right there. You can barely see it, but the clutch wire or hose is going to come right out underneath the brake booster. You're not going to be able to service the master cylinder for the clutch unless you take it out through the inside of the car. You'll more than likely have to remove the brake booster in order to get to the clip to disconnect the hose. But no big deal. I'm going to be the only one working on this thing, so I'll know how to get to it. But now that I've got this set up and it's shifted over a pretty significant amount, now the V6 should fit in here with no problem. All right, guys, so I've been modifying the front of the car, modifying the frame rail. What I wound up doing is I wound up making a mark 2 inches back with a set of calipers. So I use this right here. So I made the mark with these calipers right here. Just measure out 2 inches, screw the dial down, lock it down, and then you can use it as a scribe. So you can see my scribe line going right here. So what I did was I marked it exactly 2 inches, put me some scribe lines. I cut and bent what I need to bend so that I have tabs to weld back to the car. And I've moved it back exactly 2 inches. I cut the whole bottom of this frame rail off of this side of the car. So only the top piece is left. All the rest of the bottom of it's cut off. And that's so that I can have something to stick this, if I'm even gonna use this. I don't even know if I'm gonna use this, because I may still wind up having to use that shock tower. And if I do, then all this is getting removed. But essentially what I gotta do now is I gotta test fit this thing and see if it's gonna go back far enough. And what I'm probably gonna wind up having to do, because I have not modified this edge right here, so what I may wind up having to do is drop that down a little bit because of the angle of it. But I'm gonna get it up in there and see how far it goes in, and hopefully I'll be able to get the both frame rails and the subframe mounted in this thing before the end of this video. All right, once I tried to start fitting it, I realized that I got to shorten the back end of it too. I was hoping I wouldn't have to shorten the back end, but I'm gonna have to. So I'm gonna have to shorten the back end and then see if I can get it to fit in there a little bit better. So I'm gonna cut 2 inches off the back entirely all the way around, and then we'll go from there. All right, guys, everything looks like it's lining up pretty good. Looks like I'll be able to put the frame rail right where I need to. I'll do a bunch of reinforcements around where I separated the frame rail right there, and I'll do the same thing here. But I essentially have the entire frame rail sunk back exactly 2 inches. What I'm gonna wind up having to do is right here, I am gonna have to cut back a little bit more. I need another inch off the front of this. And then what I'm gonna do is weld the front plate for the Veloster core support to the front of here. And that'll set my grill depth and my fenders and all that. So as long as I hit exactly 28 inches from the front of the firewall to the front of there, that should get my fenders and everything to line up. And then I still got to figure out what I'm going to do with the shock towers. But when I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue, because I think the height is going to be made up with this panel. Let me see. I'm a little bit lower, so I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna be able to, because now the front of the car is gonna be sitting way up, so I may have to do like a drop suspension or something to get this, because I had to drop the floor down lower than what the Veloster was originally, because the Genesis sits a little bit lower. So that's going to give me a little bit of issue, but other than that, I don't think it's going to be anything major. So yeah, I may wind up having to put a drop suspension on this thing or something. But it looks like everything's going to work. I'm going to continue on, get this frame rail fit. Then I'm going to bolt the subframe to the frame rails before I weld them to the car, so that I can keep everything square. I'm going to measure everything. I'll measure in an X pattern when I get the subframe bolted to the frame rails before I weld anything in, and just make sure everything's good and square before I do it. But hopefully, it's getting pretty dark out here now, so I'm probably going to stop here within the next hour or so. But hopefully I'll be able to get these welded in and get the subframe bolted in tomorrow. And yeah, I'll be able to slide the motor in here once I get the subframe and the frame rails bolted in. I'm not going to put the motor in here until I get the shock towers figured out and I get the front fenders and everything figured out. But once I get that figured out and I run my wiring and I clean up the firewall, because I got a bunch of freaking welds that I got to clean up. But biggest thing is I'm trying to make sure that my steering shaft is going to work going through that hole right there, so that I can line up the steering wheel to the dash reinforcement bar, And then once that's done, then I can just continue focusing on the front and get the front completely finished. Get the brakes in here, get the engine in, transmission in, get the clutch pedal figured out, get the suspension bolted in here and everything, and hopefully be able to get the whole front of this car done pretty quick. And then the back will probably take me just as long as it took me to do the front. Probably take me about 6 months to do the back. But it is what it is. So I'm going to continue on, get this other frame rail fit, and when I pick back up, I should have the subframe bolted to both of the frame rails, and I'll be doing my checks to check squareness. All right, guys, I am getting ready to call it a day, but I stuck it out and went ahead and got both frame rails shortened. Got the subframe bolted to it. I got it pretty close to where it needs to fit. I still got to do a little bit more fitment, but it's starting to get too dark out here. This side still needs to come up a little bit. But it actually, now that I've got this bolted together and I've got everything kind of rough sitting there, the shock tower height is actually going to be basically the same as that one. So I'm not actually going to be running into an issue where it's sitting lower. I thought I was, but it looks like shock tower height's going to be exactly the same. So yeah, so basically all I've done is shorten both frame rails 2 inches. I had enough to go back 4 inches without hitting anything. So I went back 2 inches. I should still be able to line up with my steering shaft and then get my steering column hooked up to the dash. And then I'll be able to start rocking and rolling on getting the rest of the sheet metal welded in. And then once I get the sheet metal welded in and get the suspension and shit mounted, then I'll be able to put the wiring and the brakes and the motor and transmission in here. And then I'll probably stop until my house is sold and I move into another location. But I did wind up getting all the old scrap metal from where I tore the car apart, hauled off today. So the only stuff that's left is the original front subframe, the original engine and transmission, and then the hood and fender off of the Genesis because they were still good. But I've made a lot of progress cleaning up out here. This is really my only mess, is right here where the Veloster is. So I'm hoping to be able to get the engine and transmission and subframe and everything into the car, get the fenders and the bumper and the core support and everything bolted to it. And then there's really no mess. The only mess that's left is the rear axle and the rear floor out of the Genesis, and I just need to cut the Genesis up and get rid of it. The reason I didn't get rid of any of that stuff is it's plastic. Everything that I took today was recycles. But yeah, moving along pretty good. I put the original rear axle back in here so that I can move it. But yeah, front frame rails are coming along really good. I should have that welded in tomorrow. I may be able to get a lot done tomorrow because it's supposed to be a beautiful day, and I've already got the subframe and the frame rails ready to go for the most part. I got probably maybe another hour of fitting and bending to get it where I need it to be, but then I'll just rock and roll on welding this stuff in. I think I'm making some pretty damn good progress, so I'm pretty excited. So we'll see where it goes. All right, guys, words cannot express how happy I am that the subframe is in here unsupported. It is part of the car now. I'm not finished welding. I still have some spot welds to fill in, and I got some reinforcement plates to put on here, but the frame rails and the subframe are permanently mounted into this thing. So pretty freaking excited. So now the next thing that I'm gonna do, obviously I'm gonna finish doing my welding down here, but the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm more than likely gonna remove these shock towers. I'm gonna remove probably the whole damn thing. I was gonna leave these braces, but I think I'm gonna take them out because they're already separated up here. Everything is separated from this top plate, so I can separate it along here and get this entire wall separated and get this separated, and then I can put that panel in there, shorten it by 2 inches, and then it should go right in where it belongs, and then that'll give me my full front suspension completely finished. Yeah, I'm super freaking excited. This is coming a long way. Now once I finish welding this stuff in, I need to measure from the back wall up to here, and it needs to be exactly 38 inches. Once I cut it off at 38 inches, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these front plates that were on the front of the Veloster frame rails. So I'm going to drill out all these spot welds around there and around there. And I'm actually going to set these on there just like they were on the original frame rails, and weld those in to support that. But I got to get the uprights for the shock towers welded in first. And once I get that done, then that'll make sure that this is all, my upper mount for my fender is still here, and the mounts for all that down there. And then I can put this frame piece back on. I had to leave it off so that I could get to the spot welds to separate the shock tower in case I needed to. And I'm glad I left those off so that now I can remove those shock towers. So yeah, I'm gonna wind up removing all of this and all of that. This is all gonna be out of the Genesis. I'll probably still keep this piece right here as a brace, and I'll keep this piece right here as a brace. You can see where it seams together. I'll just seam it together on the Genesis front shock tower. So we'll see how all that goes, but essentially everything from here back and from here in is going to be Genesis. So we'll see how it all turns out. All right, everybody, so I'm gonna go ahead and close out the video where I'm at now. The next thing that I should be showing in the videos is removing the shock towers for both sides and fitting the shock tower out of the Genesis in there. So I should be able to start putting the engine into the carriage. Hopefully I'll be able to start doing that. Probably won't be next weekend, probably be the weekend after, because next weekend it'll take me all weekend to get the strut towers figured out. But I've got the steering shaft in there, got the frame rails welded in. So hopefully in the next video, I'll have the strut towers in here, have the full front suspension bolted in, and then I'll be ready to start putting the motor into the car. Obviously, I don't know if it's obvious, but I'm gonna put the motor in the car, make sure everything's gonna work as far as wiring and everything, and make sure all my wiring harnesses my two connections for the wiring harness are gonna come through the firewall correctly. Once I verify all that, then I'll pull the motor back out, grind down all my welds that I've been doing on the firewall and everything, and that'll probably take me 2 weeks to get all that stuff squared away. Get all that squared away, fill in what I need to fill in, grind down what I need to grind down. Then I'll get to the point where I can put the motor in there and leave it in there. So hopefully I would say within the next 4 weeks, I should have the engine in the car permanently, and I should have the front end on the car. So as long as everything keeps going as smooth as it's been going, that's my game plan. So hopefully you guys will check back in and continue to follow along with the build. Like I said, when I first started this build, it could take anywhere from a year to 2 years to get this thing done. At the pace that I'm at now, it looks like it will take approximately a year to get it done from start to finish. So I'm hoping around October of this year, I should be able to start driving this thing back on the road again. So like always, if you like what you saw in this video, if you want to help me out, spread the word on this channel, please like, comment, share, subscribe, let your friends see what I'm doing, and I'll catch you in the next video. Have a great one.